Hello, and welcome to another episode of How to Build a Theatre, the podcast charting the creation of a new theatre in Brussels that will create work in English language. My name is Edward Macmillan.
And my name is Phil Wilcox.
And welcome to the show. So, Phil, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I full disclosure, I've just had COVID a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It finally got hold of me. I feel actually, in all honesty, quite lucky to have had it. You know, having had a couple of vaccinations and a booster and that sort of stuff. So, symptoms were very mild. I was actually just on tour. So I'm working with the wonderful English...
Very nice. What are you touring with?
We're working with the English Touring Opera at the moment, and we're taking La Bohème and Golden Cockerel and a couple of kids' shows around the country, as well as a St John Passion. And I tested positive on day one of tour in Poole and had to just return home for a few days. But fortunately, symptoms were very, very few. But if anyone's yet to have it and gets it, my advice to them is to don't jump back into life immediately once the symptoms have gone, because, it leaves you tired. But otherwise, I'm absolutely fine. Thank you. How are you?
We are in a bit of a COVID upswing in Brussels, I think. So we're just at the moment finishing our first term of our wonderful weekend workshops, which is 3 hours of acting, singing and dancing on a Sunday morning. But unfortunately, pretty much, or at least a third, if not more, of our adult participants have tested positive from COVID. So I think we had a bit of a super spreader event the other day, which wasn't so good, which is a bit of a shame. But you know, c'est la vie. That's kind of the. But yeah, in terms of the Bridge Theatre, apart from the workshops, we are making good progress, I guess, on our focuses for the beginning of 2022. So really we wanted to capitalize on our first successes in terms of the workshops and our production of Vincent River that took place at the end of 2021, and we wanted to capitalize on those successes to move forward with our objectives for this year, which is finding a venue and also finding finances. So I think on the finding finances for us, okay, I don't think we're quite there yet, but on the finding venue front, I think we are very, very close now to securing a first venue for ourselves. Nothing's finalized and nothing's concrete at the moment, but hopefully within the next few weeks, possibly even days, we may even have somewhere ready for us to begin to think about using, which is very exciting.
Amazing. So, and for those that don't know, I'm based in London in the UK. So I keep up with Ed and the Bridge largely online via the handiness of social media and also conversations with Ed. Did I see you guys moved into an office space recently? Was that something I saw?
Indeed, you are keeping up. Yes, we have a wonderful little tiny office in this kind of collective place. Is called Grand Hospice, which is right in the centre of Brussels, and there's a lot of different social, cultural organisations also have their offices and workshop spaces there. So there's, for example, painters who have their studio there, but there's also people working maybe in locally produced organic food, in micro capital, lots of different organisations, which we're hoping also to kind of meet these different organizations and see if we can find synergies with the Bridge Theatre as we're going forward. Who knows what they will be, but it's very exciting. Yes, thank you, Phil, for bringing that up.
Fantastic. I've also seen that you're just to give you a little plug before we introduce our guest this week, that you're being really active on social media, and it's great to keep up with everything even from afar. Lots of really exciting artists and collaborators, tutors I'm seeing coming up for the springtime workshops. Coming up within the last week. It's really exciting to see your team growing and all the wonderful artists that you're bringing in. So if you don't already follow the Bridge Theatre, you need to get yourself to Twitter, thebridge_BXL, and I'm sure we're something similar on Instagram, aren't we? So you should get yourself there. But time, I think, to introduce our guest this week, isn't it, Ed?
Yes, thank you, Phil. After that plugging, yes, time to introduce our guest. So our guest this week is a gentleman who I met not so long ago, I guess, but we've been trying to meet each other for a few months now. And he is a very interesting person to bring on because he came to improvisation, the world of improvisation, at a later stage in his life, let's say, because of certain reasons. But he's a professor of organization and applied art at the Vlerick Business School, which is in Belgium, just outside Brussels. And he uses techniques and skills and learnings from the worlds of improvisation as well as other clown techniques as well to bring this kind of the creativity that you get there into the world of business. And his name is Ralf Wetzel. Welcome to the show, Ralf.
Oh, thanks very much for the invite. I hope you hear me sufficiently. I just plugged in a better microphone. Is that working?
Loud and clear. Beautiful.
You sound wonderful.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you very much for having me then. What an excitement on a Friday evening.
Yeah, exactly.
We've all definitely got the weekend ahead of us. I think we've all got that in our sights, haven't we?
The last thing before a beer.
So, Ralf, we normally start with a few quick fire questions, if that's okay. They're all quite, if I'm honest, they're all quite middle of the road, but you can make them as exciting as you like, your answers. So my first one is, because I'm so interested in this topic, because I'm definitely one of these. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm a night owl by definition. Nothing works before 11.
Agreed. We are one and the same in this one. Do you have a favourite?
I will never understand you people.
There you go, you see.
That's all right for us. That's totally all right, Edward.
To be fair, we'll probably never meet each other because we're working at the opposite end of the day. Do you have a favourite season, favourite time of year?
Spring.
Spring, oh, beautiful. Is that because of regeneration or the colours or?
There is a certain moment in May, if you then go into a forest when the leaves have just popped out and you look at them through or against the sunlight, there is a green that you have never in the rest of the whole life. And that specific green against the sun is my favorite of the whole year. And that's why I love spring that much. And especially if you experience this in a humid forest, where still some mist comes from the ground, and you hear the first birds chirp, and you see that rays of sunlight, and then that green. I don't need anything else.
It's a beautiful image. I'm almost tearing up here.
What you've just described is every song by Schubert. When you go to the theatre, would you plug for musical theatre or opera?
I lately discovered opera, actually. I've never been into this for the big chunks of my life, but students of mine have invited me into an opera pre-COVID here in Brussels. And to me, it was a revelation and a blast.
What did you see?
I forgot. But the experience was really, really nice. I think it was an Italian opera. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, I forgot. Yes,
we'll quiz you off air and find out which one that is. Favorite drink? Do you have a favorite drink?
That is depends a lot and has changed again over certain. I don't know how you do that. For me, in different sections of my life or periods of my life, I enjoy different sorts of music and different sorts of drinks too. So I began with rock and Bruce Springsteen and God knows what, and enjoyed whiskey back in the days. Then I had a very, a very French phase where I was very much into red wine. And then came gypsy, and that went along with beer and tequila. And lockdown brought actually tons of gin tonic to me.
I like this idea. It reminds me of because I'm quite sensory as well, certainly with smell. So if I'm going away for a period of time, if I'm going on tour somewhere, I might buy a new fragrance, and that fragrance will be the fragrance for that location. So I went on tour to New York for a month once, and I bought some Terre de Mer, and that was all. And then now every time I wear that fragrance, I'm there. I'm in that moment of my life. Yeah. Just two little more. Do you have a favorite? Oh, this is quite similar actually. Do you have a favorite flavor?
Oh yes. It's a freshly baked apple crumble that you just take out of the oven. That reminds me a lot of home and of my grandmother, since she was really good in making especially those cakes. And if I'm having an apple crumble somewhere here in Brussels, I just need to close my eyes, have a smell, and I'm back in the day.
There you go, you see. And then finally, slightly open-ended, maybe something new, maybe something outside of the world of work, but something new that's happening to you at the moment or recently.
I got asked to join an improv troupe, which was actually assembled just for a show, and which had the first appearance in January, and we altogether have five shows, and that's a new experience to me. I've been for a while in improv, but I rarely had really a consistent and coherent troupe. It was a source of a long-lasting frustration. But now with Charlotte Metzenare, Magali Minet, and Klaas van den Broek from Leuven, we have a blast of a joy together. And I really enjoy that. And ensemble playing on stage is something that I have been missing and longing for a long while. And suddenly, out of nothing, without little preparation from my side, it just happened to me. So serendipity, and I fully enjoyed.
Fantastic. Do you go out under a specific name? Does your troupe have a name yet?
The troupe does not have a name yet. The production doesn't have a name yet. The production company is Segedis from Leuven, which is owned by Charlotte Metzenare. And the show is called Very Fail.
Very Fail. I like that.
So you're giving a few clues, and I've also given some clues, Ralf, about your love and involvement in improv theatre. You were telling us just before we started recording that you have a Zoom class tonight as well, and I guess the listeners will be thinking, okay, improv, yes, that makes sense in theatre, but maybe it'll be good by explaining to us a little bit about how you came to improv, because as I kind of said in my introduction, from what I remember, you came to it about just 10 years ago, not very long ago. Yeah, maybe how you came to it and how that relates to your work in working in a business school.
There you open a complete box of the Pandora.
You're welcome.
Have to focus a little bit and find a good angle to that. Yeah, I'm in terms of theater and in terms of especially of doing theater, I'm a very late comer. So I've been an electromechanic in the first place. I went into social work. By accident, I studied business administration, became a researcher on social and organizational theory, became a manager, and slipped over the course of that, basically while arriving here in Brussels, into a burnout and into a depression. So I really had a bad time. And by accident, again, many things in my life have been happening accidentally and serendipitously. Do you say that? Yeah. And one of Nathalie van Rentrem from Leuven has invited me to join an international conference of applied improvisation. And I sucked really very much here in teaching when I started working in Brussels. And going to this conference just for one day, it was in Berlin in 2014, gave me an idea on how teaching actually could be. So I was very afraid, very scared of really getting in touch with students. In my first teaching experience here, students have been very, very hostile. It was a very, very risky environment in which I didn't feel well, absolutely. I really felt threatened. And going just to this conference was an absolute eye-opener to me, where I saw how people on stage who were giving a workshop and people who were coming to the workshop to learn something actually could joyfully and empathically collaborate with each other from the very first second. And I thought, shit, that's what I want to have. I don't want to be scared and hiding from my students. I don't want to have the feeling of being at risk in the place where I actually want to bring something and provide something for a learning journey. I want to have that empathy and joy and mutual encouragement in my teaching conditions too. And I thought, I want to learn how they do that. There must be a technique or something behind. And thankfully, with Raymond van Driel from the Netherlands and Nathalie, we quickly sat down together, gathered some funding. And by the help of those two professional applied improvisers, I completely revamped my teaching style. So the way I teach, which was much more listening to where the students are, going to where the fear is, finding out what they need, and start my session from where I find them rather than from where I come from or where I want to go to. So that completely changed my way of behavior in class. Almost incidentally, at the same time, I realized that the skills that I learned from improvisation theater for non-theatrical settings like mine as a teacher is actually stuff that my students need to learn, since I deal with students who want to become manager or want to become better and booster their career. And I realized that the situation that you have on an improv stage is basically the same that you have in a managerial boardroom. You have, in some moments, no idea what to do when surprise strikes, when shock comes around the corner, and you have to let go of your strategy. Technological new solutions come in and your product is gone, and you have to respond to that. And I realized that classic management and organizational literature and research has very strong difficulties on finding appropriate means and frameworks to teach people on how to respond to those moments on high speed and in high quality. Mm-hmm. And I realized that that's actually what improvisation as a mind and skill set, as a stance, is providing. And so that was the next step for me, that I started not only changing my didactical approach, I put basically improv at the heart of my teaching.
It's amazing, because you were, so this was in Switzerland, wasn't it, that you were teaching, and you were teaching at a business, am I right? You were teaching at a business school, and you were teaching people, essentially people, managerial skills.
Yeah, I started doing this in Germany. I went to Switzerland for 3 years. I tried to elaborate this there. And then I came here and more or less crashed into a wall of expectations that I was absolutely not prepared to meet. Yeah.
Without this skill set there that your students would be gathering academically, you wouldn't be able to improvise yourself out of a situation which you just don't know about. You wouldn't be able to make the right situation. But it sounds like through improv, you've actually created almost like the mindset, the positive, the yes and, the kind of think quickly, gather those thoughts that you probably got in there somewhere, but actually this is just the fear of, I don't understand the answer to this question, or I don't understand this problem. And you're saying potentially, if I'm right, that the improv sort of allows the brain to kind of, if you get in the groove, for example, to get in the mode of right, this is how we solve this problem, go,
Yeah, the difference it made was classically, or in many boardrooms or in decision-making places outside of improv stages, when surprise strikes, people are firstly they're paralyzed, and second they're panicking. So the mind is panicking, and so they go into a state where you really try to avoid making any mistakes, since you're afraid of making it worse. Or you're afraid of someone pointing at you and saying, that is the most stupid idea that I've heard. Just go down, put your head down and do your bloody job. And that isolates people. And the higher you go in the hierarchy of a company, the higher the amount of isolation and of loneliness you're going to find, which kind of explains why, especially in crisis and in shock situations, managerial decision-making is so bad. They're not connected, and they're afraid. And so you make very, very conservative decisions, if you make decisions at all. And improv and clown is to me, a wonderful realm on where you can find how you can make fast-paced, high-quality decisions that really move a story or a product or a service or a contact with a customer forward. If you leave your panicking brain, and if you focus on your partner and try to feel and sense what's the emotional condition of your partner. And that's what I learned from the whole exercise. If I sense that my partner is panicking, I do everything, literally everything, to take the fear away and to make my partner feel comfortable and confident, so that he or she can again tune into intuitive and truthful play on a stage. And that's actually what is basically and desperately needed in boardrooms as well, that you have a connection, that you go into true contact with your partners, find out what's the emotional condition. And if you sense fear in the room, that you kind of either directly address it, or you try to do whatever is in your power to make someone else kind of relax and de-stress and come back to the senses and the rest of the body.
Because we're quite used to, in the corporate world of having training from actors, musicians. I think we've spoken Ed, with a guest before about, singers, for example, might have a sideline in going into offices and corporate spaces and teaching projection and presentation and all those things. And actors would go in and talk a bit again about presentation, body language, all that sort of stuff. This is another, and actually it sounds like quite a bit possibly deeper, a bit more psychological.
I would just say it focuses on a different aspect. I mean, if you have a voice coach dealing or trying to make someone be more conscious on the usage of voice, of pitch, of space, if you have an actor helping you to work on body language, that's all stuff that you work on yourself, and how you can sense when you are anxious, when you're getting anxious, and how to encounter that. I think what improv is building upon those things, those realms, is how to get into contact with somebody else, and how to read yourself and your state, then your emotional state, and especially to read your partner. So it's a relational addition or complementary to voice and to physical work. I think it has the same source, since I think, to me, dealing with anxiety by surprise and by discontinuity and uncertainty starts actually with breath work. So self-connection, physical work on noticing how you breathe and changing the breath, especially when you're stressed. And then if you're deep in your breath, when you're under pressure, your body already becomes much more receptive. And with reception and with receptivity, you become more sensitive to where your partners actually are. So in that sense, I look at my partners for two reasons, actually. One is if I smell that they're in panic, I'm called in and I'm supposed to support with whatever I have. And the same thing, if I'm panicking, my escape is going out of a panicking brain and again focusing on the partner. So I'm leaving my own panic.
I mean, for me, and I think probably anyone with a theatrical background, everything you say, Ralf, makes so much sense and is kind of. I've always felt that there is so much that the real world can learn from people working in theatre and how theatre is created and all these. Exactly, Phil, you said it, the yes and the dealing with unknown situations, which is in its extremity in improvisation, where no one knows what's happening and you're dealing with the unknown all the time. I think it's for me it's the perfect tool. I wonder how people from the business world perhaps reacted to you coming with these ideas, whether there's this is quite kind of out there from the point of view of business perhaps, and I wonder whether there was some reticence to taking on these ideas and implementing them.
I learned to kind of set the table in a way that it makes it easy for them to find an access to what I have to bring. Meaning, in many cases, especially in the beginning when I started doing this improv and clown work and so to say included that in business school teaching, I did not talk about where this stuff comes from at all. I was sort of say using the rhetorics and the concepts that my audience was used to, and I was using the exercises and the frameworks in order to make the participants finding an experience how it is to operate when you're isolated and disconnected, and how it feels and what kind of results you produce when you are actually connected. And so I didn't talk about theater at all. I said, this is about change management, or this is about agile leadership, or this is about innovation management. And I was just sending them into the exercises. And yes, there is, even with that kind of, let's say, undercover approach, I need to build a kind of a safety zone first, since the exercises that I bring are very different from what classic management education looks like. So I have to give them a few exercises where, yes, there is failure involved, but it's low scale and it has no consequences. And everybody at some moment is failing and fucking up. So so it's easy to do. And from that moment onwards, I can come up with more, let's say, demanding or challenging exercises, then to give a feeling on how does it feel when you're sort of say yes butting, when you're blocking, and when you're kind of defending yourself, And what's the difference if you go into yes ending and deep listening mode? And that usually is enough. And it helped me tremendously to get away from slides, and it helped me to get away from cognitive concepts to almost physical experiences that people have. Say, yeah, true, that makes absolutely sense. Mm-hmm. And actually, I want to have more of this yes ending experience in my work. And then we start talking, okay, how do you use it?
We've mentioned clowning a couple of times and clown work. Can you unpack that a little bit, certainly in its relation to improv and the differences?
Again, that was very coincidental. I started with improv and had a girlfriend, bumped into a girlfriend later on, and she was an improviser and a clown. And while I was seeing her clowning, I felt a very strong pull from the bottom of my heart that this is interesting. This is something that I actually truly enjoy, and I want to learn how that works. And what I found there is it's like an extension and a deepening work that goes into stuff that improv already starts working on. But to me, it goes much deeper. And there is one thing, or let's say two things that are worth mentioning. The first one is a clown has the license to display any emotion that the clown in that moment has. Whether the clown is sad, he can display that he's sad. When he's happy, he's happy. When he's hungry, he's hungry. When he wants to have sex, he wants to have sex. There is no filter. The red nose gives you the license to literally display everything that is happening within. Now, that sounds easy in the first part, but we have been learning and indoctrinated with not showing how we feel. And so red nose clown work to me was a revelation. Since the first place, I had to look, how do I feel actually at the specific moment? And I had to look and search for long, since I didn't feel anything. I realized I have no words. I don't know, but what the heck's going on within me? And so that work was almost self-revealing and self-liberating, since I suddenly realized on how hard and how tough the walls have been that I actually had around my inner emotional world. And the more I digged into this, the more I actually realized that the more I feel within, the more the variety I have in sensing other people's feelings too. So the second thing which led me to that is a clown becomes beautiful on stage when he or she can display any emotional event that is happening within him or her and connect that with any energy that the clown receives from the audience. Mm-hmm. So you have to look for how is the audience doing? What's the emotional state that they're having? What kind of an energy am I receiving? And there is no judging of whether the audience likes you or not. You have to receive and you work with it. And the best thing that you do is you just connect it with your own internal stuff and you shift the brain out and something will come to the fore that you don't have an idea what it is. But you are completely in the moment. The audience realizes that you are totally with them and that you're totally truthful in the same moment about how you feel about what you receive. And that was another step for me professionally and personally to get out of the isolation and the distance from other people that I kind of learned over the years. So that's 1 and 2. Number 3 is what I really, really enjoy. The best thing that can happen to a clown is that he gets a problem. And the worst thing that a clown can do is to solve it. So what a clown does, if he's or she's smart, a problem is a gift. So he's actually looking for problems since he wants to showcase on how desperately he or she wants to overcome the problem. But by doing so, he fails and he makes the problem actually bigger. And usually by the rule of 3, you encounter a problem, you don't solve it. You look for a different solution, which is bigger. And of course, the failure is bigger and you do it again and it's even more bigger. And the beauty of that work is if you allow yourself and if you hold the space and the tension and the fear that you might not find a solution on really how to solve the problem, if you hold it, if you stay in it, if you make it bigger, a solution is waiting for you at the end, which is not in your head, which you never will be able to think about because it's waiting in the mistake at the very end of the journey. And if you hold it, and if you stay curious in making it bigger, and if you do not run away out of fear and anxiety, you might not find anything. If you really hold, if you really go to the end, the most smartest and beautiful thing will wait for you that you just need to pick which will surprise you. And because it surprises you, it surprises the audience.
It's that old Stokowski quote, isn't it? Art is immoral. It's not one that you can necessarily think of, dream of, write about, but it's there in the end.
And again, if I bring this into corporate work, making a problem bigger is unimaginable. Managers are problem solvers, and if they can't solve it, they cover it up.
I mean, for me, it's because this is also the human experience in a way. We as humans, we don't like to face up to our own problems, right? We want to hide them and solve them, and it seems that through this clown, I mean, clearly for yourself, through this clown work, you also were able to explore your own emotions and find those own raw emotions. It sounds kind of valuable for basically a lot of people, I think, to kind of go through this experience.
Yeah, and the beauty of the clown is that he's one of the last representatives in modern world by which you can identify, because the clown is as imperfect as everybody is. I laugh about a clown because I see that he's fucking up like I actually do every bloody day. And the clown in that sense gives everyone who is looking at a clown the license eventually to relax and to forget about LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Insta. And hey, easy. Everyone is imperfect, and actually it's fine. But we're so trained and used, not only in corporate worlds, but they're in a very specific sense of trying to be perfect, making a hard deal out of improving myself, really pushing myself as whether I have to work against myself, which is the most terrible idea of learning that I came across. And actually the clown gets you to the point where it's like, fuck it, you don't have to. You can learn out of curiosity. You can learn by being back into a state of naivety and innocence. And if you look at objects and things and problems from a naive perspective, you see so much different things that come to you. You don't have to look for them. They come to you. You don't have to work that hard, and you don't have to beat yourself up of not being good enough here and not being good enough there. And I need to work on this. And no. Learning can be fun, and learning can be discovery and can be driven by curiosity rather than by the idea of I have to be as good as he or she or perfect or whatever.
Well, there's another drama link as well, isn't there? How brave one has to be to show vulnerability, to be vulnerable, and in often cases how much that is. If you want the right answer, that might be the right answer. It might allow the right answer to come to you.
And I think just chipping into this, I mean, there's a classic idea of role playing in learning settings where you are supposed to find out the right solution for a specific problem. This is not about finding out about the one solution to a case. It's about the variety and the different roles that I can sneak into, which might have a very different impact to a scene being going on in a role play. And so I think theatrically or artistically infused role playing is much more of discovering to become what I am not yet. And again, there's a curiosity involved in the yet and the discovery of difference and diversity of how I can actually respond to a problem.
We got to the stage, I think, that you'd experienced improv, particularly for your own personal life. You'd got a couple of colleagues on board, and you'd found some funding. Where did it go to there? How did you just fill in the gap? Because obviously now you're out there and you're enacting this. You're taking this out, and this is part of now your life and your tutelage. Was there a little gap that we missed out as we were trying to, what did you found, and how have you made it into your working life?
If you follow the silent pull that comes from within, it will never lead you astray. And I had very good people who kind of helped me in following this silent inner pull. And that led me by serendipity to the stage itself. So after this part of where I used improv and clowning for my own teaching purposes, for my own first life, professional life, I said at some point, facilitating improv exercises is one thing. That doesn't make you an improviser. It makes you possibly a better facilitator. But at some moment, I was really desperate on, now, let's go on stage. and that was the next step, and that was exciting and thrilling and terrifying as the steps before. So I did clown workshops, I did improv workshops, I started to work and play in different smaller or bigger groups and on ensembles, which didn't really last long. And at some point, I wanted very desperately a clown troupe here in Brussels, and that never really materialized. So I got frustrated about that. And at some point, I was so frustrated, I just turned to my clown teacher back in the days, to Lee DeLong. And I said, listen, can you imagine to work with me on a solo clown show? And she tilted her head a bit and looked at me and said, Ralf, just to mention, you just choose the most difficult subjects, clown and solo. Together, it's really hard. But yeah, sure, I see some potential there. And then we started off with working on a solo clown show, which actually turned into a half mask show. And I was always doubtful of, come on, this is just stuff that I bring, and I'm a lay person. I'm not a professional actor. And so this will never exceed a certain level of quality, even if she pours all her heart and professional experience in it. It will stay, let's say, mediocre, right? Or kind of a beginner scale. And then again, by serendipity, I landed actually at the end of 2019 at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and played for 4 weeks exactly that half mask show. And the feedback that I received there from actors and from directors and from reviewers who saw the show was, to me, absolutely mind-blowing. They did not see that I was not a professionally trained actor. They loved the story. I saw that the story and the way it was directed and it was played really could touch people. I had people crying in the show. I had people laughing in the show. I had people being pissed off about the subject. And I said, yes, no matter what kind of emotion you're having, the piece made it. And that provided to me an amount of satisfaction that I still long for. And from that moment onward, when I received that feedback, I turned to Lee and said, yeah, I understand. You would never let me go on stage without being absolutely sure that what we deliver is professionally sober and valid. And I said, thank you for that. And from that moment on, I consider myself an artist.
I wonder if it's possible to describe kind of how that experience of especially the Fringe, performing at the Fringe, changed you in a way. Like how's the before you versus the after you?
I never trusted my own work, and I never trusted the quality that the collaboration, especially with Lee in that very specific incident, I never trusted the quality of the outcome, because I always was very self-conscious and very doubtful and say, come on, I'm a lay person, right? And so the experience of Edinburgh was, to me, I'm capable of more than I feel I can. And if I find the right people to work with who very quickly can see on how far I personally actually can go and give me the heat and the challenge and the emotional safety to make those developmental steps, then I can go everywhere. And thankfully, I found those people. Lee is one of the artistically the highlight and the cornerstone for me. But professionally, over the course of my work, I had several of those people who saw, I think, we had a clear idea of where I actually could go, which I never saw, but who, in a way, gave me the feeling of that they do know that there is a treasure out there for me that I can't see yet, but who are there for me to side coach and support and give me hard challenges and give me harsh feedback, but constantly give me the feeling that this is all worth it. And so to say, were accompanying me in a process of becoming of something that I haven't been yet. But what I discovered I can be. And that thrill alone of an electrician or of an electromechanic who had absolutely no idea about theater can go on a festival and play my own stuff that came out of my own body, side coached by a wonderful director, can impress and can touch people and make me, I say, fuck yes, that's cool. I just want to have more of that, right?
And now through your teaching and your sharing the skills that you've picked up, you kind of want everybody to feel like that.
Yeah, if they want it, if they don't, that's fine too. I think it's very fair that not everyone wants to be on stage and wants to become an actor, but the experience that I have, that I really I found out there is so much more within me that I even have the slightest idea, but it's there. And the point is, am I interested in giving that a space? Am I willing to follow the silent pull? Which means I need to listen, first of all. What are actually the silent pulls would drag me into places that actually feed and nurture and nourish me? And am I willing to go and invest in a very open, very risky and uncertain process where I don't have any idea what the outcome will be? Am I willing to step into this process? Am I willing to learn and to acknowledge that I need not only to trust, but I need to respect that process, who has its very, very own rules and principles, which are so different from very classic career making, saying, yeah, this is my goal. And I mean, that can be fun. And at some point you will achieve what you are aiming at. The point is, yeah, what's then?
I mean, Ralf, what you're describing is a really nice, almost holistic vision of mentally healthy people in the workplace who yes, this kind of new 21st century hopefully model of working as well, where it's not just all about results and hard targets. It's about also the people that work in the organizations and how they interact with each other, and making sure that we are all looking after each other. So thank you for bringing your discovering improvisation and bringing that into the business world. I think that's fantastic, and I'm really happy that you also discovered for yourself this love of performing, and you have been confident enough to pursue it and take it to the next level as well. And I'm really excited to see what you have next. I think you've got a few little performances in Brussels coming up, if I'm not mistaken, and yeah, it'll be great to see what else where the clown world takes you. I'm delighted.
Definitely, there will certainly moments where we will re-meet, and I'm very much looking forward to them. Yes.
So, Phil, do you have any last questions at all?
No, I was just going to ask Ralf what the next thing was lined up for the troupe. You mentioned the troupe in the quickfire questions. Have you guys got stuff coming up?
Yes. Next Fairy Fail show is on April 24th at 8:30 at L'Improviste,
which is in Forêt in Brussels.
I'm working again with Lee on a full mask show currently, which will premiere on May 14th at the Zagreb Clown Festival in Croatia. So whoever wants to have a good choice of a very good and nice city and have some fun around, come to Zagreb. And between May 27th and May 30th, I'm going to play the show that I've been talking about, Absolutely Reliable, at the Brighton Fringe Festival, for 15 each day at Sweets at the Poets. So come over to the UK and let's have some fun in a wonderful theatre festival with tons of people, tons of inspiration, amazing shows. And I'm just messing a little around there. So come and join us.
Well, I'm only an hour away from Brighton, so I might see you there.
I mean, fantastic to hear that you're living your best post-COVID life, Ralf. This is a touring around. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Phil, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Lovely to chat also.
The pleasure as always. I'll see you in about a month.